Shalom, Kol Haloyim, Yahweh Ba'ashim, Yahushai, Ba'ashim Rachakudash, Shanya Kabad, Gadwala Requab, to Kwanyam Nawa, Wa Shalayakim Nawa, and that's double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone and Shalom, Wa Barakim, La Bakarim, Shaliyasharala. That's peace and blessings to the elect of Israel. I have this article up here, and I wanted to bring it out because as you have a lot of newcomers entering into this ministry, into this faith as we call it, then this may be a question that arises in some people, some brothers' mind, which is, has World War III started? And the answer is no. It doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter what these people come out and talk about on these different news broadcasts concerning Russia and Ukraine. World War III has not started, and it's not going to start or finish until the MOB, which is the microchip, has been made mandatory. Now, what's happening over there in Russia and Ukraine, you can say it's maybe a precursor to World War III. Maybe it's, what else can we say? It's, I guess, the beginning, of what's going to transpire or escalate into World War III. But no, that's not World War III. It's many, many, many more nations. And I get why they're saying it, but if we're being absolutely correct, then no. So I wanted to bring that out because it has to do with biblical prophecy. This article says World War III, 7 times it has been wrongly declared or predicted. Moscow's remark echo a string of previous sinister predictions. So what I'm going to do is play this video, and I'll just read what the captions say because, of course, it's in a different language, in case you're not watching.
Это тоже надо
Let me do this.
осознавать.
Let me refresh it. It's a lucky about all the ads. Try to exit them out. So it says, Russian state TV presenter says war in Ukraine has already escalated into World War III. So let's keep going.
Спецоперацию России
It's
на
impossible to
Украине.
accept that
То, во
Russians...
что это
Ooh, that was
вылилось,
fast.
спецоперацию
It's impossible to accept that Russia's special operation in
России
Ukraine...
на Украине. То, во что это вылилось, уже смело
one can safely say this has escalated in World War III. That's for sure,
можно
she
называть,
says.
не лукавя, Третьей мировой войной. Совершенно точно. Мы прямо сейчас сражаемся, если...
Right now, we are definitely fighting against NATO infrastructure.
не с НАТО, то уж точно с инфраструктурой НАТО. И это тоже
It says, if not against NATO itself, and we need to acknowledge
надо
that.
осознавать. Соединенными
Also against the
Штатами
United States of America.
Америки круглосуточно они по железной дороге поставляют.
So yeah, that was basically it. That TV reporter basically said that we can safely say that World War III has already started. And once again, this is something that I'm sure plenty of brothers have in their minds. They're questioning, they're wondering. The simple answer is no. This has to be instituted first. Revelation 13. Okay. Let's go back. Come back. There we go. Revelation 13, verse 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark. Charagma is that word in the Greek. In their right hand or in their forehead. So something pricked. Something imprinted or planted under the skin, subdermal. And that is the microchip. That's what the MOB is. And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And you can definitely buy and sell with this mark. This has to be made mandatory. It's a huge, big prophecy that has to take place prior to World War III breaking out. Now, World War III, truth be told, it's not going to last long. Like, it's not going to be a war that lasts 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. I mean, we're talking about something that's going to be swift. And actually, before we read 2nd Ezra 13, I want to jump back and I want to get the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter. This is something that's also going to happen. We can say prior, but leading up to World War III. Joel 3:1, it says, "For behold, in those days," so this is an end time prophecy. It says, "In those days, and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations," it says, "and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat." On the Hebrew, that's Yahweh Shaphat, which is the Most High Yahweh's judgment. And that's in the Middle East. "And will plead with them there for my people." The word plead means judge. "And for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land." So what's going to happen is World War III is going to mainly take place over there in the Middle East. That's the valley of Jehoshaphat, or Yahweh Shaphat, the Most High's judgment. And it says the Most High is going to gather all nations, not just Russia and Ukraine. No. So World War III is not started yet. Once again, if you would like to claim that this is a precursor to it, sure, we can safely assume that because we know that we're living in those days. We're living in the time of the end, when World War III was prophesied to happen. The scriptures talk about how the first and the second war have passed, and the third woe, meaning the third war, cometh quickly. So yeah, it's going to escalate into World War III, sure. But it hasn't happened yet, especially because all nations have not been gathered over there in the Middle East. Should we jump down? No, that was a point. That was good. Summon yourselves and come down. Beat your plowshares. It talks about verse 12. Once again says, "Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about." So, in the Middle East is where World War III is going to break out. Now, once that happens, then that's Yahweh Shai's return. That's when he's going to be returning, in the midst of World War III. And he's going to return with the holy host, more chariots, all the angels, and they're going to also destroy that host over there along with Babylon the Great, which is America. So if World War III actually really did start, Yahweh Shai would be on his way. And that's not happening right now. How do we know? Because the MOB hasn't been made mandatory. You have to align prophecy. Over there in the Old Testament, jump back to the New, maybe come to the Apocrypha, back to the book of Revelation. You're going back and forth. The scriptures talk about reading precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. That means you're going to be jumping around. Don't get it confused with cherry picking. No one is cherry picking the scriptures and just using certain precepts for your own benefit. No, what we're doing is we're aligning certain scriptures almost as if it's a puzzle. We're putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And when you grab pieces of the puzzle, they're not going to be right next to each other. You're grabbing one over here, putting it in a corner, seeing if it fits. If it doesn't, you're grabbing a different one, and you're putting this one down bottom maybe. And you're aligning things together to where prophecy is almost in a nice, even, seamless chronological order. Now, 2nd Ezra 13 verse 1 says, "And it came to pass after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea, that it moved all the waves thereof. And I beheld, and lo, that man," that Yahweh Shai, "waxed strong with the thousands of heaven, all the other angels, and chariots. And when he turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that were seen under him. And whensoever the voice went out of his mouth," and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, that's the chariot. All they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it feeleth the fire. After this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men. That's all the nations that we just read about in the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter. There was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea, meaning the heavens, the Shemayim. But I behold, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain, that's a chariot, and flew upon it. He's not actually flying on a mountain, it's a chariot. But I have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth, once again that's a chariot, as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. That's a great example of what's called a hendiatrice. I think that means 1 out of 3, maybe. But basically, the scriptures right here in verse 10 is using an analogy in 3 different ways to describe one point. So it says, but only I saw that he sent out of his mouth, that's 1, as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips, that's 2, a flaming breath, and out of his tongue, that's 3, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. The mouth, lips, tongue, the blast of fire, flaming breath, sparks and tempests, that's all referring to the the fire, the beams, whatever you would like to call it, that's going to be coming out of the chariots. Now, verse 11, it says, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight. That's all the armies gathered in the Middle East, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. So if World War III already started, then Yahushua would be in the midst of coming back and destroying all the nations gathered over there in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. But no, what's happening right now over there in Russia, or in Ukraine rather, dealing with Russia and Ukraine, that's not World War III. It hasn't started yet. Maybe a precursor, maybe that escalates into it. Who knows? Maybe it stops. Maybe it stops and things calm down first and it looks like peace and safety. And then something else brews up somewhere else. Who knows? Maybe there's going to be different skirmishes here and there. But we have to just keep in mind. And I made a video about this a few weeks ago, but I thought it was fitting to just come back to this and bring out a few different precepts concerning this. But we have to make sure that we put prophecy in its proper order first before we, you don't want to get your hopes up too much and then all of a sudden you become anxious and get too weary and then that happen to be your downfall. We have to put things in order and remain sober-minded. The scriptures talk about watching as well as praying. And I'll grab that precept as well since I quoted it. I believe it's in the book of Luke. Let me see. Maybe it's John. But let's just try Luke 21. Yeah. I love bringing this out. I read it maybe on a weekly basis. Luke 21 and 34 through 36. And take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unawares. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch ye therefore, and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. And let me clarify, nothing is wrong with being anxious, because I'm anxious to make it out of here. The scriptures talk about how we have to, what does it say? It says to, let me jump over to 2 Peter 3. Haste in verse 12. The scriptures talk about hastening the coming of the day of the Most High. Nothing is wrong with that, but you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're mentally burned out because you're just hoping and expecting certain things to happen when you think or feel as if they should happen. And then you burn yourself out, and now you find yourself losing the faith. That's why you have a lot of men falling out right now. Just losing the faith at the end of the day. Whatever the reason is, you don't want to put yourself in that position. So just continue to watch and pray. And that's all you have to do. Watch and pray, continue to read, stay in the scriptures, just stay in the spirit. Do what you have to do to keep your spirit going strong. If that's meeting up with brothers, if that's making a phone call, if that's just watching different videos, do whatever you have to do to remain in the spirit. He that endureth unto the end, the same shall be saved, the scriptures say. So just wanted to bring this out as I was sent this email, this article rather, to my email. And you see it came out a day ago, so just yesterday, very much relevant. And that's the talks right now, that we're in World War III, but not yet, but soon come. So I pray that this was edifying to the elect. Call Haloyim, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Chakudash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the elect. Shalom.